We're focusing so much on other people's puzzle piece. Like, what do you care about? Why don't you care about this? Why aren't you doing this? That we're not focusing enough on our own puzzle piece. And all we can give to the world is our own aligned puzzle piece.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Just let go. My guest today is Peta Kelly. When we hopped into this interview, I said to her, I'm kind of over the formal interview style. I need a break. I'm disenchanted. Can we just chat, have a real conversation? And that's what we did. You will see. You will hear. I could go on and on about Peta's accomplishments and just how rad she is, but I think it's important you just hear for yourself. She's done the things, she's checked the boxes. What I appreciate most about Peta is that she's just as real as it gets. Hands down, call it like it is, this chick is real. And in the spirit of just kind of humble bragging for a friend, Peta did go to college. She was on her way to get her PhD, decided that wasn't the route she wanted to go toward the very end. She had accumulated a lot of years of education. Ended up getting a job, becoming a millionaire in her 20s, retiring her mom, who was a single mom as a school teacher. She has done some really cool things in her life, but what I appreciate most is she's just real. She calls it like it is. If you're not following her on Instagram yet, please do. Not only is it comical, it's therapeutic. She's at PetaJean_. And yeah, here's our chat. Being able to design my own day and do it in the most efficient way is a non-negotiable for me. I'm a bit of a time management nerd, so when I find something that allows me to be more efficient and effective to get the most out of my day, I want to share it with everyone. So here's the scoop. I have a new tool in my productivity tool belt, and it's called Monday.com. My team and I have never felt more organized professionally and personally. And my to-do list is no longer the boss of me. I feel more in control because every project, initiative, date, and task is captured and organized in one place. And my team is in the loop and involved every step of the way. We are in lockstep. Monday.com is like having a brand new operating system. Everything has its own home, deadline. You can see the team members associated with the tasks, and it's color coordinated, so you can easily navigate your own task list. We all have multifaceted jobs, businesses, and lives. With Monday, you're able to keep all of these components organized in their own compartments, but you're also one click away from seeing the big picture and how they all integrate together. Creating systems and procedures within your day and business saves a lot of time. For example, my team and I have a dedicated Monday.com board for this very podcast. Did you know that there are 28 steps involved in getting one podcast ready for air? It's the same exact process every single time. And it's a system that we have put into place. So we know the various key steps are assigned to certain people, and we've mapped out the entire process from start to finish within this one board. This allows us to be streamlined. It cuts back on the amount of emails exchanged as well as the amount of meetings needed. One feature I love is that my social media content calendar is built inside of Monday.com. I finally have one that I actually use, I like, and it's embedded into my overall calendar as well. Another feature we use every single day is the Google Doc integration. You know I love a good spreadsheet. I can pull them into Monday.com and edit them right there versus having 97 tabs open on my computer, which is extremely distracting and inefficient. If how we spend our days is how we spend our lives, then I can't think of anything more important than using the time in our days wisely. Head to hey.monday.com/Amy Jo Martin to start your free trial today. That's hey.monday.com/Amy Jo Martin. Peta, welcome to the show. I am excited to have you on, and in the spirit of why not now, let's hop in. Can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you had to ask yourself, why not now?
Yeah. Now I'm thinking, which one? There was when I deferred my PhD. There was when we decided to, for our first child, we decided, and for our second child, we were like, it's funny because I was thinking books and I was thinking children. And for me, both my books and both my children happened at the same time. So my first pregnancy was also a pregnancy with a book. And now I'm in my second pregnancy and I'm also pregnant with a book. So it's funny. But with my first pregnancy, it was one of those times where we said, are we ready? And I just got off the phone to a friend who is like, she's been having those fears about, am I ready to be a mom? What's it going to do to my career? Is my business going to go backwards? All of those things. And I just said to her, it's such a co-conception between the three of you. And it just always adds on to everything. Like it doesn't need to take from anything. And I think when we were at the point where we were being a yes to our co-conception, that was one of the questions I was asking, like, why not now? Why not now? I feel like the timing's always perfect. And you'll know that with your experience with Lincoln, like regardless of our plans, the timing's always perfect with a child because it's such a co-conception. It's not a business decision. It's a co-conception that's always perfectly timed. So that was the answer to my question, why not now? But when I was pregnant with Sol, I had to ask myself that again with my first book, because I tried to write that book 3 or 4 times before, and it wasn't the time. If I had to ask myself, why not now? The answer was because it's not now. It's just not the time. And I think sometimes it isn't the time. And I was being what my friend Alyssa Romeo calls clock blocked in terms of I was trying to write it when I didn't have all the information. I didn't have all the embodiment. I wasn't ready. It wasn't the time for the co-conception wasn't right between me and the book. And it was only when I had Sol, my first child, in my womb, was it the time to write that first book. So for me, that first book, when I asked why not now, I got a yes because I was pregnant and it all lined up. And that was when I had the clarity of, well, it's now because firstly, you're going to have a child. So do you want to wait another 2 years? Because, get it done now while you've got no children running around and your baby is in your womb and not outside. But secondly, because this information it's information that doesn't belong to you anymore. And you're about to bring a child into this world. And if we all waited until it felt completely comfortable, until we had no doubts, no fears, all of that, then there'd be no one making anything. So not only did the timing line up, but I had the clarity I needed when I became pregnant. Exact same thing happened with this pregnancy, I'm not doing this book until next year. I'm doing as little as possible. I'm going to spend time with my toddler and I'm going to enjoy this pregnancy. And then one day, this second book was like, no. I want you to do it now, effortlessly, quickly, print it in a very easy, simple way. Don't go through the whole book business, limited edition, small batch, and do it now. And the reason why not now, because this baby doesn't want to share a womb with this book. Like both babies have to share a womb with the book, and this baby wants the book out so they can have the womb to itself. It's not always the right time, but when it lands, and for me, the babies have been like such a clarity giver and like a green light, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah. It's interesting because it's like the book is the boss, the baby's the boss. But I've heard Stephen King say that before about writing, and I love his book called On Writing, and he's just like, I'm of service to this creation that's coming out of me. I'm not the boss. You know, I kind of have to get out of the way. And it sounds like you're experiencing that as well. And I had remembered you saying that about your first pregnancy and how the book was just like coming. And so you jammed it out or it flowed out really. And I can see how now, having just gone through the experience with Lincoln, I started writing quite a bit when he was in the NICU. And I was speaking with my literary agent, and she's like, hold up, you're still in it. And I'm like, but this is when I'm getting such clarity, right? And things are just, I got to get this out on paper. And I think sometimes we toggle between, are we still in it? Should we be writing about it? Should we wait? And I actually asked Martha Beck when she came on the show, how do you know when it's in alignment to just go after it and write, when you're through it and or in a place where you can honor what has happened or what you know to be true? And she said, when you're never going to be fully through anything, like you're always in it. But when you can look back at it and not have any resentment, and that sounds like such a strong word because it doesn't have to be negative, but when you feel neutral and from a place of like vitamins versus medicine, if that makes sense. And I was like, interesting. So I'm curious for you, like when you say clock block, which is such an interesting term because I think we do that to ourselves all the time. Can you explain, if someone's listening, like what that really means as far as if there's a project on your calendar, but you're just it's not coming, or if you are, something isn't scheduled, but it's totally coming. Like, can you kind of really put that into a literal?
Yeah. I mean, you can put it down to something as simple as a post, as an Instagram post. Like you have a photo, you have an idea, you're trying to write it and it's just not there. And then 2 days later, something happens and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was trying to write this post on Monday when I needed what happened on Wednesday to be able to articulate my point. These ideas and books and even posts, like I feel they have their own being and their own energy a lot of the time. And they don't run on human time. We run on human time. And so sometimes we have to communicate with our business or our books. And this sounds a bit woo-woo, but, no. They don't have any idea of the human restraints and human times that we have. And so I think sometimes we get so used to scheduling our own things. And people always say, sit down and write at this time. And I found while breastfeeding with Sol, I actually had to say to my crazy ideas like, hey, can you come at between 9 and 11 tomorrow and not at 3 a.m.? Try and like form a relationship with them and try and like you said, the book's the boss, try and form a relationship with these ideas and words and whatever that wanted to come through so that we were kind of fusing together the two. And I think we feel clock blocked when it's all on our time and we don't acknowledge that the entity or the idea or the book or the business also has a time. And the same goes vice versa. Then the idea in the book sometimes doesn't realize that, hey, I've got a child with me all day today. Maybe I can't write at 11 o'clock and you're sending me all these amazing ideas and I've like got a baby on the boob, one in the hand. So it's just about realizing that there are two different times at play, I think. And for me, I needed the urgency I needed the fire. I needed the baby in my womb because that gave me holy shit, I care about this world so much more than I thought because now I have a baby in my womb. So I was trying to write it on my time, but life had more to give me so that I could be in the space to write it. And with this second book, I was trying to put it on my time. Well, books usually take this long and then I'll have to edit and this and that. And so my baby's due at the end of this year. I don't want to have that experience where I'm about to give birth, because what I do when I give birth is I go completely off. The month before I go off emails, I just get in my zone. So I was like, can I really do it in like 3 months and have it written and given to my community in that time? I had to also lean into what did the book want to be. And now this book that I'm putting together, it isn't going through an editing process, which is shit scary for me.
But
it's
also
like
relieving. It's like, refreshing.
It is, but it's funny because today I was trying to proof it and I was like, holy shit, like the tone hasn't been edited, so it's really fiery. But I feel that that's my challenge, is that this book wants to give people permission that a raw essay or a raw piece that was written in the moment, it's like an account, and it's a pure point in time that you can't, if you edit it, you're taking the purity out of it in some ways. Some things you need to edit, and some things you ruin it when you edit it. And so with this book, it wasn't meant to be done like Earth is Hiring was done. It was asking me, I want you to gather all of the things you wrote in moments of anger and joy and relief over the last 2 years on this particular topic. And I want you to put them in. So it's like a scrapbook of these poems and pieces and little bits that I wrote, as well as like really fiery essays that I wouldn't publish because they are really fiery, and then my own illustrations. So it's something that the potency is there, but it's really freaking scary because people are going to not only see like the nice sounding words, but they're going to get a real look inside my ego as well, because there's sentences and stuff in there where I'm like, holy shit, like my editor would definitely tell me to take that out. And I'm not allowing myself to do that. So it's really scary, but it's also exactly what it wants to be. And the message for me, even if people didn't read the words, it's that sometimes things, they don't have to be like we think they need to be. Like, what if this book could be written in a month and then published in a limited edition, really high quality way and released, and not go through the whole marketing thing, like just release it in a really beautiful small batch way. And that's what I'm doing with this book, because that's what it wants to be. And my children's book, they're both coming out at a similar time, and not going through that whole thing. So I think it's also, we have to remove our idea of how it has to go and how it goes for other people. And using the book business as an example, is it's such a long thing if you go with a publisher. And that's why I didn't with Earth is Hiring, because I'm like, I'm not going to write this book and then talk about it 18 months later. It's boring for me then. Like, I need to write it and talk about it now and then move on. Like, that's how I work. So I think sometimes we're also clock blocked because we're making things harder or longer, or we're borrowing a blueprint that perhaps doesn't work for the piece of art that we are meant to create. And sometimes I feel like the creative process is wanting to be easier, perhaps more vulnerable, but easier and smoother than we let ourselves think it can be. And so there's so many elements to clock blocking, but that's one in my recent life, is that I was like, I could clock block myself by being like, no, there's not enough time for this book. And then this book was like, you've already written me, put me together, draw some pictures and give it to your people and take all the bullshit out of it. And no, you don't have to do marketing. It doesn't even have to touch Amazon. Just print it in the high quality you want, sell it for the price you want, and do 500 copies to begin before you have your baby, and then revisit it next year. And that's as simple as I'm letting it be. It's fucking scary, I'm telling you.
Oh, good for you, though. I bet it's like you can feel the energy as you're speaking. What will happen energetically as you release this book? Because just what you mentioned about the raw, fiery, just things in you, in a way, that's making space for the next experience and phase in life, becoming a mother again. And it's it's pretty refreshing to hear you talk through this process, because it can be so daunting and structured and inorganic and just icky. I think the book writing process can be really difficult. And so I appreciate your ability to just be like, what if this looked differently? What if we just screw the template and do it on your own time frame. The publisher would tell you need a year. That fire isn't going to even want to be lit in a year, right? It's like, whatever.
No.
So,
and then I'm going to talk about something else next year. And I know that's how I work.
Right.
I think a lot of people work that way. And that's why I haven't gone with the publisher at all. And I can't, because their blueprint doesn't work with how I'm designed. And
Yep.
I think we have to just let ourselves really do it differently, and also realize that how, like, we're so used to filtered photos and edited. We're so used to it, and there's such a place for like that real effort when it comes to creativity. But for me, I know that my words that reach my audience the quickest and the hardest and the best are the ones that I write and I post on Instagram with no one else ever checking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's my raw words. So why not make a book of that kind of writing? And then also it's going to be even more vulnerable, because it is parts of me that they wouldn't get if my editor touched it, because she would, she's freaking amazing, but she would be mindful to say, hey, Peter, this sounds a bit feisty or angry, and so it's almost like this book is trying to gift me as well something, which is like, let yourself be seen in a whole new way, where perhaps people are going to be more triggered by this point, or you are going to be seen in the parts of you that are really wounded still, or but they're still so ripe for me to write now. The message is ripe for me now. And next year, I can't promise that it is going to be. So will I just let this book die in Google Drive like I have another couple of books that are still sitting in there? Or will I honor this book and let it come out looking, just letting it be, and also letting the process and letting the rawness be a gift to my community, and permission for them to know that it just doesn't have to look like that. And you don't have to want to be a New York Times bestselling author. Like, this is also about the process you're going through to make the book or to make the thing. And for me, once I've gifted this book to them, that's when it becomes their journey, but now it's my journey. And I want to enjoy the process. I want to learn something new. I want to do it in a different way. I want to also do it in a way that suits me as a mom. I don't want to, this got to feel good for me. Like, the book is the boss, but I'm also the human that is going to sit down and write it. So we've both got to be working together here. And I think that we've got to take that power back while also respecting the energy and just kind of the entity, and just forming a relationship with it and breaking all the fucking rules. I just think this, the book is just all the creativity, all of it is so much, it's so broken, and it's killing people's creativity, and everyone is starting to write and sound like each other, and it's like, oh, we're all human. If you're going to read my book and read like all these things that, because Earth is Hiring is, I wrote the whole thing and it was mildly edited, but in terms of, hey, Peter, you repeated yourself here, cut it out, that kind of editing. But this one is just, people are going to be like, fuck, you were angry that day. And yeah, I was, and I was hurt. And you get to read about that, and you literally get to taste what it was like for me that day. And if somebody combed through it and made it sound more palatable for you, then you would be getting the words, but not the energy, really.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. I appreciate how true you are to the process too, and aware of what you need to be doing in order to stay true. That's a whole cycle of awareness there. And I feel like we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't touch on your path to this point, because I'm like, wait a minute, we haven't even, and I know you've shared this before so many times, but let's make it fun and different. And if it were a movie reel, if we were to see the reel and the teaser of your life in a movie trailer, what would that be? Peta, can you share back to however as early as you want to go, and you don't have to make it fun for yourself. You do have to make it fun for yourself. But I just think about your path and how you've always been breaking the rules. I talk about renegade mentality all the time, and it's in your DNA. It's in all of our DNA, but I think that you've really embraced and allowed it to surface. So can you share a little bit about your path? And you can make it as in-depth or as abbreviated as you'd like.
Yeah, so I was born in I'm going right back. When I was in the womb, actually, no, but I think an important part of my story is that I literally can. That's the weird thing about it. But I was born, my family of four. My mum was a single mum in Perth, Western Australia, and which is why I call your husband Dickie, because we have like that Australian thing.
I love that. It was a surprise in the beginning. I was like, oh, no one I know refers to you as Dickie except for your Aussie friends.
You have to. You're never called your full name. No,
and it's usually an IE. It's hilarious. Okay, I interrupted there. Carry on.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, my family always was like, we were all super sporty. We played every sport. That's how a single mum raises four children, is sport. You have, that's what, it's the greatest gift. And we were really good at it. Like we were all, winning awards and playing elite soccer and all that stuff. And actually, strangely enough, road walking, which I don't think many people know about me, but fun fact. But I was always born with like this crazy sense of responsibility that has been like my greatest strength and weakness since day one. And like just this ability to lead. That's not being cocky, but just like it was so natural that I did it all the time, even when I was super young. And it was even to the point where it was probably gone a little too far. Like I told my pre-primary teacher I wanted to be the Prime Minister, which is ludicrous because I would never want to be that. But I would be the kind of kid who would be like, hey, guys, I'll do the project. Don't worry. Like I'll do the whole thing, which looking back, I'm like, okay, that's borderline narcissistic. Why don't you think they could have done it? But I was like, it's all my job. Like it's all my job. I'll do it. Don't worry, everyone. I'll do it. And my siblings called me Lisa Simpson. And I just, I was just always that one who kind of like an overachiever, the one who was making sure all my other siblings did the chores, that one.
That's awesome.
And then when my nana died, I like made a promise to her, I'm going to take care of mum. And my mum was a full-time school teacher and just my absolute hero. And I decided I would retire her when I could. And then I went to university and I became a scientist. I did 2 degrees and published a thesis and was on track to do my PhD, and I got a scholarship. So I started my PhD, which was all about the menstrual cycle and appetite and exercise. And I thought, wow, this is how I'm going to retire my mum, is I'm just going to be really good in science and get a great income. And, that's how I do it. But about 6 months into my PhD, I had like just this I don't even know how to say it back then because I wasn't aware of what it was back then at all. But it was basically just like a non-negotiable voice that was like, this is not for you anymore. Like you've done 6 years of science, this is not your path. And it manifested as anxiety and like exhaustion in my body. I just couldn't fathom walking into the lab, and I couldn't fathom going into work on my PhD. My body was like, listen to me, like this is not you anymore. And so I went into my PhD supervisor's office and was like, I couldn't even explain it because I didn't know any. I was 20, I was in my early 20s. So I just, I had no idea. I was scared because I thought I'd be a doctor by the time I was 25. Like I was ticking all the boxes and kicking all the goals according to everyone's, standards of success. But here I was like knowing deep in my body, this isn't for me anymore. And so I told her, my supervisor, I'm super anxious and I can't do it. And she was like, what? Like, you just got your scholarship. This is amazing. And I left it, and I just felt the biggest relief, but also the biggest fear and uncertainty ever. As a young woman, just given up my life path that I thought was going to be my forever, and to do what? Literally had no idea. I had no idea. And that's when I found my first, I went traveling. It was a little bit of a long story, but found my first business in network marketing and caught the vision for that, specifically for young people who were really over the shoulds. And this was back in like 2011, 2012, which seems like forever ago now, but built a really successful, amazing organization of millennials who were, back then, it's all really common lingo now, but back then it was all about living your ideal day and, creating a life for yourself that we weren't taught was okay. And so I did that. I built an amazing team, and I retired my mum in 2015 with my brother. And so now she can be Nana, which is like the greatest dream ever because, back when we were growing up, there was winters we didn't even have hot water, and my mum had to boil the stove, and pour the boiling water into the bath 4 times a night so that we would all have a hot bath after soccer. And times were tough, really tough financially for my mum. And although she was the most loving, generous, superhuman in the world, I knew that if I changed my money story and situation for my family, then that was just a deep part of my purpose and something that was important for me to change my little corner of the world. And so I did that, and I had an amazing team of millennials. And then I went on to, because I had created such financial success, I suppose, I went on to invest in things, really just invest back into the community a lot, in events, programs, philanthropy, all sorts of things which were really geared towards mobilizing millennials specifically. And then I did festival-style events, and a lot of it was voluntary for me because I could. All that sort of stuff, got married. And I'm like, I don't know how to jump in. Got married to my husband, Eric, who's American. We have the same situation as you and Dickie, except vice versa. Mm-hmm. I lived in America for 4 years, which was super challenging for me, actually, and one of my deepest periods of soul growth. Got pregnant with soul, and then my mission changed again. And then I evolved out of like the whole millennial thing and moved on from, talking about the new paradigm for millennials and conscious money and business and all that, and moved on to, God, I don't even know. Now at events, I speak a lot about motherhood and the intimacy of motherhood, and I speak a lot about the consciousness police and how bullshit so much of the consciousness world is, and how judgy and how righteous and how shaming. So I've got like all these different messages that are so right for me, but one of the big ones is motherhood and releasing this sense of significance and responsibility outside of the home so that we can have the fire and the warmth in our home that we are craving as women, particularly as overachieving women. And now I'm living in London. I probably missed out a whole lot there, but yeah.
No,
that's in a nutshell.
No, it's so interesting how depending on where we are in this time and space, and just what we dive into more in our past and our stories too, because you're constantly evolving. And what you said, you said my mission changed again, and I think that's really a big pillar of what you just shared is your mission has changed, and that's normal. And you didn't try to hold on to the science and grasp onto it so tightly because you had invested all that time in your education. I feel like you're very, not only are you obviously in tune, but you're listening. You're constantly listening. It's interesting how much from the outside, your path might look like these different phases, but that underlying ability to listen and roll with those waves is just like strong, constant. I remember you saying one time, I don't know if I read this or if it was when we spoke before, but it was, you ask yourself, does my soul fist bump me when I go to sleep at night? Because I'm the only one that has to sleep with my soul. And that really resonated with me because that is your pillar. Like you just seem to keep coming back to it, and it's looked so differently from the outside. I mean, you are a rock star at network marketing. Who would have ever thought you were going to get your PhD? And now you're doing something different, and it's like, and that's okay because it's the only way.
And we're changing. That's the thing. And there was a couple other companies in there too, which reflected where I was at in my life, because we are evolving so much. And I feel like I changed so much that originally I thought it was flaky. I was like, why don't I want to do that anymore? And that's just me. I like to do something with gusto, give it everything I can and birth it. And then I need to rest and recover and move on to something else. And that's how I'm wired. And I personally went through an evolution of being such a masculine achiever and do and just suppressing so many parts of my femininity and my sensuality, and becoming mother to a daughter changed that for me. And so therefore my work changed. And when I spoke about change, what I was going through changed. And I created a company which was all about moving to the natural rhythms of life, and it was like a beautiful feminine company. And so we are just evolving. And then I was like in a really spiritual conscious phase where I just thought my shit didn't stink. And then I came out of that and was super humbled, and then started to find a message there in terms of like the humanity and in spirituality and the groundedness of it. And so my personal journey was constantly changing, and I feel that our souls, we are here to learn such different things. We're here to experience money differently. We're here to experience people differently. We're here to learn different things. That's why we came here. Like, it's like a Super Mario Kart. We have or Crash Bandicoot. We have different coins to collect, and we're here to collect them, and we have to pay attention. And I think a lot of the time, that's why I get so fiery about the consciousness world, which is what this next book's actually about, is we're focusing so much on other people's puzzle piece. Like, what do you care about? Why don't you care about this? Why aren't you doing this? That we're not focusing enough on our own puzzle piece. And all we can give to the world is our own aligned puzzle piece. And because it's hard sometimes to get honest about what that is, like, what do I really care about? What do I not care about anymore? What excites me? What doesn't excite me anymore? Do I even want to run a company anymore? Do I even want to be an author anymore? Like, all these questions that I ask myself every single day, because I'm so comfortable in the pivot, because it's just who I am. But it's scary. Those questions are also scary. And I've been in times where it was scary, like my PhD, and also leaving Australia to move to the US. It was, it's scary. But I don't feel like we have a choice if we want to, like, do what we came here to do. It's to not decide, but like you said, to listen, to pay attention. Like, what kind of puzzle piece am I here to contribute to the greater puzzle? And I've got to keep my eyes on how I'm feeling, what's exciting me, what's not exciting me, what I care about, what I don't care about, what's my biggest work right now. And a lot of the time we think it's what we're doing and creating because we can show people that and we can talk about it on social media. So that's become like our gauge. And so much of our work, our deepest work, is so private. The work that I've been doing over the last 2 years on myself has been deep lineage work, like things my mum went through, or my nana went through, and her nana went through. Like, that's the sort of stuff that's been coming up for me as a mum, and that I've been healing and that I've been processing, and that's been my deepest work. And it's not something I do talk about it sometimes, but not a lot, because it's so much is private and subtle. And my journey of loving myself, which became urgent when I became a mum. And I wasn't before. I just wasn't. I was achieving things. I was earning great money. I was doing lots for other people, but I wasn't loving myself. And that's the journey I've been on the last 2 years. But again, it's private and it's subtle. And so a lot of the times we're ignoring the important work that we need to do because we can't talk about it on social media. We can't talk about it with others. It's so private and subtle and thankless. And it shatters our ego because it's not something to get credit for. And it's not something to be, like motherhood. It's like no one will ever know what it's taken for you to move through this time with Lincoln. Like, no one, not even Dickie. Like, no one will ever know. And that's how I feel with being a mum and healing what I've been healing, is no one will ever know, not my husband, not my child. No one will ever know what it takes for us to face our shit and to move through it and to somehow keep it together while we are. And that's what I feel is our job. This is why I feel like breaks from social media is so important, because sometimes we need to not have other people's interference or expectations or projections, so that we can know, like, and actually ask, like, fuck, I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. That's not important to me anymore. Like, I'm not there anymore. And I think there's no greater work that we're here to do but that. And social media, I feel, is one of the reasons that we don't do it, because there's so much interference and distraction that we can't hear it, And so I delete the app all the time. If I'm feeling too wound or too caught up, I will just delete the app from my phone, and I'll only go back on when I really feel called. Whereas before, it was like I felt like I was just in that vortex. It was like a matrix, and I had plugs in my body. And I think having children, you realize, like, you get really protective. Like, no, get those plugs out of my body. Like, I am responsible for this child, and my body is responsible for this child, and I can't be having all these other plugs plugged into me while I'm giving life to this human, So anyway, that was a bit of a rant. I don't even know what the question was.
No, I think it started with the fact that you accept and realize your mission is changing. But I keep going back to, as I'm listening to you, is we have to pay attention. Like, it's just that feedback loop that we're constantly getting from the universe, the whatever you want to call it, from our soul, from whatever, insert term here, but it is the guide, like it is, and it's no one else. And I think sometimes we replace that. It just clicked with me too. When you mentioned social media, we allow the feedback loop to be Instagram. And it's like, whoa, that's dangerous. And it gives me like full on, I've got chills right now thinking about that, because, and almost tears, because, this is a world I've played in at its infancy. And I feel like I sometimes can see this meta view from 30,000 feet, what's going on. And then I'm in it, boots on the ground, participant, and it's in and out toggling. And if you look at this over the last 12, 13, 14 years, how we're behaving as humans, it has nothing to do with technology. It's how we're using it. However, it's a huge mirror and it's an amplifier. And so we have to be pretty cognizant of what we want to be amplified. And it's amazing how big of a role an app can play in our lives.
It's another test for us too. It's like it's like money. It's like we all have different things to learn about money. We all have different things to learn about something. I feel like social media is one of our modern day tests, and we have to get a grip on how we use it. It's not, it's all well and good to be like, it's designed to suck us in and but we have to take responsibility for our own life in every way, our health, our everything. So we just have to get a grip on it. And I think we've let our nervous systems get so wound up that we are reaching for it and so afraid to be away from it. And that's our responsibility now to detach from it, unwind our nervous system so that we can have a productive, resourceful relationship with it where we are using it for our own good. And again, not borrowing the blueprint of I have to post every day, there's this algorithm, it's just, I recently turned my account private and a lot of people were like, wow, then you're not going to reach as many people. And I was like, but there's, I've never done the buy followers I don't even understand the algorithm. I don't even really use hashtags because for me, it's a platform for expression. And not to say I haven't got caught up in the scroll hole or checking notifications. Absolutely. I just got so frustrated with my behavior with it and how I felt with it that I just slowly got a grip, and stopped blaming the app and realized it just really deep shit too. Like, fuck, she's just turned 2 and I've got another one coming. Do I really want like all this information coming at me? Like, can I actually hold that in my body firstly? And do I want my child to see? And we're really mindful not to be on it around our children, but it's just, and I'm all for the occasional guilty scroll. Like indulge. There's some amazing stuff on social media and I think it's an amazing platform. Especially Instagram is the only one I use. But we just have to get a grip. We have to get a grip and we have to stop again and step outside and be like, where am I playing by other people's rules or expectations? If I didn't know how it should be done, how would I do it? And that's my question for everything. For me, it was turning my account on private, deleting the app in between uses, just making it work for me rather than feeling like I was slotted into this social media vortex and controlled by it, which I think for, like you say, renegades, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're being controlled by something.
Oh, yeah.
Got to get a grip, and unwind our nervous system. Because if we're touching our phone without realizing we're touching our phone, it's not an Instagram issue. It's a nervous system issue, I feel.
Oh, and I want to touch on that radical responsibility point that you just made of you realize this is me doing this. And I've heard you talk about that before and just you've said it, if you are just outwardly, if you are experiencing any lack of freedom in your life, whether it's your personal or financial freedom or whatever, you need to take radical responsibility. And that's something that I know you really believe in. There's no one else that can do this. And whether that's in any aspect of our lives. And you've done that historically and obviously here in the present. But if we were to look back in your time with Isagenix and just when you were you just blew it out of the water, financial freedom. I mean, you figured it out. You retired your mom. That's amazing. Do you feel like you've had to shift gears at times from being that driven Peta, or that you've just evolved over time? Can you have both? Can you have the pay attention side and really listening to that feedback loop that your soul's giving you while also being in full on, I'm going to rock this? Yeah,
because sometimes I'm going to rock this is the exact perfect place that you're meant to be. And I think for me, I was stuck in that. And it wasn't until I began the process, not stuck in that. And I don't even like saying that because I look back and it was perfect for me. I needed, that was who I needed to be and how I needed to be to achieve what my soul wanted to achieve and to learn what I need to learn. So people always ask me at events and stuff, looking back, would you still have reached just 7 figures in your 20s or mid-20s? I mean, they ask in all sorts of different ways. If you weren't so in your masculine energy. And I'm like, I have no idea, but I'm glad I was because it did the job and I learned everything I needed to learn. And I was in my fucking mid-20s. I mean, how much am I expected to know about life? I was learning. I was making mistakes. I was just making more mistakes than wins. You know, that's what life's for, especially in your 20s, you know, and 30s and forever really until we die. I didn't actually grasp slowing down, but then again, I don't think I actually wanted to until about a few months before I became pregnant with Soul. And that's when my soul and my life, I just felt like I was being helped and slowed down. And I had the desire to, and it didn't happen overnight. Like there was so much nervous system unraveling. There was so much lineage stuff because I came from a single mom. And so I have single mother energy running through my DNA. And so I'm always got a big capacity to give and to work. And I'm a worker, like I've worked since I was 12. So it wasn't easy for me to start slowing down. It took time. But the catalyst again was I'm about to become a mum. And I want more energy, firstly, for myself, but also I want my daughter I wanted to heal some stuff that I knew I needed to heal so that she didn't need to inherit it. And a lot of that was feeling like all of my worth was in how much I was doing or giving to others or what I was being for others outside of my home. And that was really real for me, like this sense of significance and responsibility outside of my home, whereas I wasn't allowing myself to enjoy what I'd created as long as everybody else was cool. I wasn't allowing myself to deeply enjoy it, although the structure was there. I had all the healthy food and the business class flights and everything. So I wanted to heal that. So I had such a deep incentive. I'm not going to have my daughter born without me addressing this fear of slowing down that I had, or this inability to. And so it was just such a process. And it took so long. Like even when she was born, it was still a process of feeling worthy, even if I just tended to my home for a whole year and didn't create one thing outside. I still feel worthy, and that was my work. And funnily enough, I actually published my book, Earth is Hiring, while she was a newborn. So and that was the timing. It was perfect. There was lessons there. There was nothing wrong. However, like I was still learning the lessons as I went. Mastitis. It's just perfect, learning the lessons. But then what I learned recently is that I do have, like right now I'm in quite a creative season. However, I know that September comes as I get ready to wind down for the next birth. I'm going to ease off. And so I work in surges, really, really, really intense. And then nobody talk to me. And they're really, really intense. And then I'm not looking at Instagram. And so I feel like there is really aligned holy times where we are meant to be in action and, maybe having those, messy, I'm not sleeping kind of moments, whatever. But we just have to be able to listen when it's time for rest and just pay attention as to what's the real question here. Am I able to slow down, or is there work for me to do here? Like, am I ignoring something? Am I placing too much of my value in life outside of my home and not taking care of some really hard shit that's knocking at my door, So I think for me, it was such a process. It was such an evolution. It was, I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm not a single mum, but I still have so much single mum in me that I still have healing to do there, but I still need to not beat myself up then when I am in a period of go, 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 because I know that that's not forever. And I know that it comes when you're moved so much. Let yourself be moved, because it doesn't last forever and you will need to rest. But just when it is time to rest. And if you have resistance to that, where's it coming from? Do you feel like you can't rest and you're not worthy of, have you got shit to face like I did? Or, and I think it's just, you can have both for sure. Some people are more slow and steady all the time. I'm more go, rest, go, rest, go, rest. And that, I think we just got to get to know ourselves as well and stop beating ourselves up for our patterns. And also know that, particularly for women, we do a lot of the time come from women who weren't able to slow. And, there's so much there. There's so much there. That's a whole other call. But there's so much to pay attention to is what I'm saying. And it's not meant to be scary. We're just meant to take responsibility for it.
I keep thinking of the word capacity, and not in a negative scarcity standpoint, but also what you said about, it's like, can I hold space for all of this? Like whether it's on Instagram or and there are times where you have a lot more room than others, right? I had this aunt who would say, don't let anything rent space in your head for free. It's valuable real estate. That goes for the internal side of things too, of what are you allowing in your own head to rent space? And back to the whole like Instagram thing, do you really have room for all of that? And can you hold all of this, what you find to be sacred? So I think that's like a theme that I'm hearing. And I just appreciate your level of awareness and living and sharing and being a real-time kind of teacher. And I don't know if you consider yourself that, but I definitely look to you as someone who I learned just so much from. And I'm excited because it's that scary unknown navigating new waters that I feel like you're just always doing it. You're always out there with the sharks. You'd rather be out there than safe, in the sea of sameness, just kind of treading water. So it's fun. And I appreciate your time, Peta, and taking, we're in different we're in a big difference of time zones here, and I appreciate you finding the time. And is there anything else that you would add to the conversation? I want to make sure people know where to follow you and all of that too.
There's so much that I won't even begin because we can have that conversation another day. I don't know. I think that whoever's listening, they just need to not feel overwhelmed, firstly, because I think when I speak, I know I jump around a lot. That's just how it works in my head. So it's how it comes out of my mouth. But I think everybody just thinks about what's the one thing that really landed and just pay attention, because everybody, you know what I mean? Like, because of social media and because of this personal development world, which I'm like really watching right now because there's so much in it that I feel we need to be aware of. But it can feel like everyone around us knows more about what we need than we do. We want the channeler to tell us, and we want the Vedic astrologer to tell us, and we want this human design expert to tell us, and we always want everyone else to tell us what we need to do and what we need to pay attention to and where we're at and what's best for us. And we already know. Every time I get on a call with anyone, any one of my advisors, helpers, spiritual people, whatever, they are always just confirming what I already knew, but didn't feel perhaps like I sometimes was powerful enough to admit that I knew. Surely I can't be that quick with my knowing. Surely I can't be that intuitive. Surely that answer that gives me the most relief isn't actually the right one, right? Like we don't trust this amazing guidance system that we have and how entitled we are to the relief that we're seeking. And it could just be one decision away. So I just want everybody to just know that they know whether relief is next, or whether they need to rev up and get into action. I don't know. Whether they need to slow down and turn Instagram off for a little while, or whether they need to stop leading a company. It's big, small, but everybody knows, I think. And it's just, I think if we can just step back and realize that other people outside of us they're not our gurus. Like we are. That's what I make such an importance for myself, is just that self-governance and knowing that, just how clear it can really be if we let it be and if we give ourselves the space to let it be. But yeah.
Oh, wow.
For me right now, I'm just on Instagram and on my website. I'm not in many places.
And we'll link to you as well. But I love following you on Insta because it's a breath of fresh air. And sometimes you just do disappear for a little while and it's like, oh, I wonder what Peta's off learning and doing and, fostering right now. And then it's like, oh, here we are. She's back.
It's funny, because at the start of the year, I went off for like 2 months, but I went off straight after I had a concussion, and I posted, oh my God, I had a concussion. I was knocked out by a tree. And then I just went silent for 2 months. And when I turned it back on, everyone was like, are you alive? And I was like, shit, that was the worst time to go off. So it's just funny. Sometimes when you have such a close-knit community, you got to let them know, I'm going off. Whereas I was just like, goodbye, and I have a concussion.
Aww, they're Googling you. And
so bad. Oh, my God, these people were like, I legitimately didn't know if you were in a coma or something. And I was like, oh, my God. Okay, next time it's just funny. You've got to watch my timing, I think.
Yeah, there you go, for sure. Well, I mean, one of the key themes, we have to pay attention. Are you paying attention? I took that away from you in this conversation. And are we trusting what we hear too? And actually not just paying attention, but allowing ourselves to receive that and act upon it, or at least let it resonate, and trusting ourselves, like you said. And we just tend to look on the outside and we've got it. We just have to trust that we can hear and receive and make sense of it ourselves too. Thank you for everything you're doing. I can't wait to see this book and get it and read and just congratulations too on your next one on the way. And we'll be following along.
I appreciate it, and give my love to Lincoln and to Dickie. And it's just so amazing watching you be a mum and everything you've been through. You've been so strong. I've been watching just like, wow. I think that's what we don't realize too, is like we just do it naturally, right? But it's just really inspiring. And I know you've given a lot of mums a lot of strength, but also a lot of perspective too, to just be super grateful, for healthy babies, and to just know how we are when we need to be. And we can be that at any time. Like, we don't have to wait for such a surprise. We can turn it on now if we need to. And so I think you sharing your journey has been super valuable for a lot of people.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. You're exactly right. I mean, we are so strong, and it's there. It's always there, and we don't have to dip into that strength just when, and super intense times come about. But thank you, and we'll be following along. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?